Meredith, thank you for joining. For those who don't know Meredith, we had worked together on a past client with Marketo Measure, and I was extremely just impressed with how Meredith approached not only attribution, but also just reporting overall. You were building in Tableau, you were like doing so much, and this was a massive enterprise client, and there was a ton of data. And so I was really excited that you said yes to jumping into attribution time. So thank you. I really appreciate it. Go ahead and give a little background about yourself, who you are, where you're at, what you're doing.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so I mean, it goes both ways. Like I said, it's been incredible getting a chance to work with you on that client and then also see kind of how you're having these conversations afterwards. So I'm very excited to be here. So thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Yeah, so to kind of like just jumping in on how I got here, spending my time at Etumos. My background is actually more on my like degree-based background is in communications, and then I kind of fell into the marketing operations world, and then from there fell into analytics and marketing attribution. I think the progression that I had set me up very well to go into a world of analytics. One of like the main reasons why I like marketing attribution specifically and really love what I'm doing now is that probably like the main drivers that I was in a platform operations role, and I could see the value of a lot of things that were being rolled out, like life cycle, scoring, data hygiene, and I understood the value, but it's really hard to explain that to folks outside of a platform operations world or a marketing operations world without data points to back it up. And I'll always remember just a small like tidbit of a story. I was wanting to go to a conference years ago, and my manager at the time was like, great, I see that, but if I ask for funding to go to this, no, like what is the value, of what's the value of you going to this conference? And in my head I was like, it's this conference, it's marketing operations, that's what we do. Like why wouldn't this be valuable right off the bat? And I remember having to put together a reason, a use case for why I should go to this conference. And I think that's when it clicked for me of, wow, this is literally what marketing attribution is, explaining the value behind the programs that we're doing. And that was when I realized that everybody can see the value in their own programs, but making other people be able to see the value and actually being able to be strategic about that experience is what clicks. So that random experience of wanting to go to a conference and then translating that to my role and how I fit in the company with everything else, I think is what inspired me to get into analytics and what has inspired me to really be more value focused. And especially being at Etumos, that is like our foundation of we supporting marketing operations through these 4 pillars: platform operations, campaign operations, marketing intelligence, and operations development. So how do we show the value of this to our clients and their organizations? And being in the role that I am now really helped me hone in on that skill and be more strategic about the way that I'm seeing it. So that's kind of a background of how I moved into where I was previously. There was an opportunity at Etumos, moved into this role, and I have been loving it ever since. I am excited to be here.
It seems like y'all are doing some awesome work there. I constantly seeing more engagement with Etumos. I love the call out of being in marketing ops and not only having just in the day-to-day having to prove what attributes to something, but also the development, the operational piece, and how that just naturally leans towards finding how do we attribute to XYZ. Like there's just a natural progression there. And that's something actually I called out in the book that I wrote of like, I think MOPS is a huge driver of marketing attribution because marketing is always going to bid for it. Sales is always going to bid for theirs. Lead gen, people are always going to bid for their, like, everyone's fighting for it, but operations comes in and says, okay, well, how does this all work? How do we actually measure these things? And there's a point where you have to figure out attribution. Like, it's just a natural progression. And so even when you hear about people saying, well, we don't, marketing attribution, just is a fallacy, it's a waste of money, this and that. It's like, at the end of the day, everyone's doing it already.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Buying a tool to save people time and allowing them to invest their time into other things. So again, just attribution. What's the process of all these things? How do we save money by investing into something to gain value, to know where to invest? It's just, it's a very cyclical process and all of that within businesses. And so I think your story there, unplanned in every way, it just is a perfect picture of the organic progression of marketing attribution.
Yeah.
So when we were working together, you were building out a ton of Tableau reports. I was envious of how well you could do that. I was like trying to, you didn't know this, but I was in the background taking classes, doing like the free courses of Tableau. And I'm like, this is hard work. This is not easy. Like, one little thing goes off and then like you got to go hunt it down. Do you enjoy that? Is that something you like within the day-to-day? Like, tell me a little bit about that, because that to me was so tedious and very challenging.
Yeah, I love it. So I think one of the biggest things is there was there's a conference that I'm going to in a couple of weeks, Mopsapalooza, and
Nice.
before the conference we were asked to give ourselves like a superpower,
Okay.
and one of my coworkers said something along the lines of we're investigators and we like to decode things, and that is marketing operations,
Yeah.
constantly troubleshooting, constantly finding out what's going wrong, how to fix it, and just being a decoder.
Yep.
And so I think with working in Tableau, uh that's one of the biggest pieces, is that you're trying to take the data and visualize it in the most efficient manner possible with the data that you have. So it's twofold.
Right.
You can expect to have a bar chart and say this is the best way to visualize this idea, and then you actually get the data, and if you're showcasing 50 different bars because that's what your data has, that's not going to be the best way to visualize it, because it's going to be overwhelming and you're not going to be able to gather insights from it. So being that decoder of the data and then saying, okay, what's the best way to actually visualize this in a way that's interpretable, to be strategic in the way that we want to hit our questions, that's a main part of my job. And I love that. I think with data visualization, you have to have a creative side, you have to have a technical side, and I don't like being put into a box. So that is the best thing
It
that I
works
can
out
have,
great.
is being able to do both of those. And it's also trial and error too. I mean, I just started in Tableau a couple years ago, and I learned by doing. So working with the clients helps me hear different
Yeah.
ways of hitting questions, and then just having that experience is really helpful. So even what I developed last year, I'm still tinkering with for that client this year and making it better, because I'm
You
learning
optimized
new
it and
things.
continue to
Yeah.
build on it.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's really cool. So with that one, because this was such a large client, we had the main initiative
Yes.
of executive presence,
Yep.
finding like showing the value not only of the attribution tool in which we were using, but just of all the data.
Yeah.
So the attribution tool that you and I obviously were working on was Marketo Measure, and one of the value adds was that the data warehouse, which pulled in so much additional metadata, because the client had this a disparity, I think that's the right word, of their data. So you had data living in a different data warehouse, and then you had data living in Salesforce, and they weren't communicating. And so marketing saying, we know we're adding value, it's just not, the translation and the process to get it into Salesforce takes a very long time.
Yeah.
And so that was the executive piece of, hey, we got to show value of our marketing efforts by seeing this additional metadata, pulling that in. And then you also had just the day-to-day users or marketers that were trying to understand their data, gather their data. So tell me a little bit about what would you say are like the biggest differences in how you report, whether it's attribution or not, at an executive level and then at like a marketing level, whether it's this client or any other client. But how do you, what are the major call outs between how you present at that time?
Yeah, so I appreciate this question because that is exactly what we try to develop for them is that we developed a dashboard that had 3 different audiences. And so if you were the executive audience, you were looking at that high level of information of how much source pipeline came from marketing, how much influenced pipeline or revenue, and then really wanting to understand what are those top accounts. And that's what started the collaboration and the partnership with this particular client, is that they wanted to be able to show the executive team of their top counts, top opportunities, what are all the engagements that happened, and then the marketers would take that information, drill down, and use that to help inform some of the strategies that they were employing. So we actually went through and developed a 3-part audience dashboard. That the first part was for that executive level, understanding for those accounts, what was the revenue pipeline, sourced influence information, and then what were the top channels and drivers and campaigns. And so that was just flashy. That was a very flashy dashboard, high level, providing that information. Someone came in, they knew exactly what they were looking at, and it answered questions. What is the revenue contribution? What's the pipeline contribution?
Yeah.
From there, if a executive person wanted to drill down, they could, but then it moved to more of a director level of information of being able to drill down into a specific vehicle that was a driver of those revenue and pipeline related questions, so that they could
Give me an
see.
example of a vehicle. Is that like is that a specific
Oh,
initiative? Is it a tool? Expand on that for me.
yeah, so a vehicle in this case was the medium that was promoting the engagement. So like paid search and paid
Got it.
social, something like that, because they were going through a vehicle, what they define as a vehicle revamp, to be able to reorganize how engagements were grouped together. And so they wanted to see within a particular group within the marketing team, how was their channel or vehicle driving engagements. So the purpose of the second part of the dashboard was to be able to go into that specific area that the director or manager level was focused on, and look at their particular vehicle channel and see all the campaigns that were contributing to it. And then from there, the third level audience was the people building the programs and actually going out there and looking at the data, looking at the specific campaigns within their vehicle, looking at who was engaging, what kind of segments were engaging with in that. And then we added on a marketing operations focus too, to be able to track engagements, make sure that as we were setting up these programs and reviewing the data, we weren't seeing any gaps. So I guess at the end there was four audiences who could be able to use that multi-level dashboard.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's always going to be levels of audiences when we report, and being on the consulting side of things, I think that's one of the biggest pieces that we kind of have to level out when we roll out with data, whether it's attribution or if it's just data in general. It's the standard elementary, like you're writing a book, who is it that you're trying to share this story with, right?
Yep.
And we just have to start there. And what happens is, myself, just the human instinct is we get overwhelmed because there's so much data. And so we say, well, we can do this and we can do that. And it's just always good to narrow it back down to, well, who's my audience? And then, like, to your point, like, we could break it out into 4 audiences, or we could do this. But the story's there. It's just you got to bring it back to, who is it that we're trying to share this with.
Yeah. And more often than not, it evolves into one question that an audience thinks they're trying to focus on is really more a portion of the outcome. And it's the question that they're trying to answer needs to be reformatted to be able to actually have tangible results. Because you might say, I want to drive enterprise or mid-market inbound activities. Well, what does that actually look like? The purpose of the dashboard is to actually show what they're engaging with so that you can make decisions on how to change the way that you're marketing to those audiences. So it's about reframing the questions too, and figuring out what can actually come out of that. What can you actually do with that question?
Yeah. Yeah, such a great call out. Because as marketers, we definitely fall into that at times where, okay, I need to generate more leads. And so then there's standard practices within the marketing world of how to do that.
Yep.
But without data, you don't know what works best for you, right?
Exactly.
And that's just so hard you could run with all those different things and do all the best practices. You could read all the marketing books, but you may have a very unique use case and how you pull in people, how you sell. And without data, it's just really hard to continue to find those main drivers or levers that really accelerate that.
Yep. There was a kind of a quick plug on a video that I had watched. It was through, I think, Data Camp, and it was understanding how to reframe a like an expectation to being a business outcome. And there was the idea of you have stakeholders, roles, and responsibilities. You have your current scenario and you have your expectation. And most people think that the expectation is the outcome, but rather your output is should be data focused. Your output should be the KPI, what you're actually trying to measure. And most of the time, people just have a generic question without any idea or context of what is involved with delivering that output. And once you break it down and by doing your research, having benchmark reporting, understanding that, then you can develop an output that is more data focused versus I want to improve enterprise and mid-market focus. Well, what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
We don't know because we haven't benchmarked it. So
I'm always amazed by how many times I've seen organizations, and this is maybe more on the medium size, but just the simple question, okay, what are your KPIs or what's your key business objectives? And they have them, but it's at the executive level, and it doesn't break down to the marketing level or the sales level. It's just there's a number that needs to be hit, and that's a great call out that you just had. Like, it's really hard for anyone, even if you have data, to show value if you don't have those key indicators, right?
Exactly.
If those are not there, then you don't know what you're bidding for. You don't know what you're fighting for. You don't know how to manage your efforts within any department. Yeah. Such a great call out. What I love about these conversations is that though we're talking about marketing attribution, we can really see how it just hits everything. Again, it's just one of those things where though marketing is in front of it, and I think it's driven because of marketing operations, it hits every department. It hits so many different aspects of the business. And so I think you've done a great job highlighting that. And that's one of the key takeaways that I'm getting from this call is just, that's exactly right. Like the point of measuring is not so marketing can have some magical way to say, I need more money. It is that every department can streamline their processes from executive down and have that there.
Yep. And it gives marketing attribution, regardless of the way you look at it, gives a seat at the table. It gives an opportunity to allow marketing into the fold to help make decisions and help allow these teams to drive the strategic decisions versus being a secondary thought or hey, this is our goal. Figure out how to put your plans into it. No, we have the data to support what's happening. So let's work together to develop a goal. So I always say it gives us a seat at the table.
Absolutely. Exactly. Exactly. All right. So I like to wrap up every call with kind of a fun fact about the person I'm engaging with. And as we've gotten to know each other, one thing I've learned is that you're a bit of an adrenaline junkie.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. So what is with that? What's the highest height in which you have jumped from? Because you've done
Oh,
different things, right? You've done like a variety of different things. So I'm curious, what does that look like for you?
yeah. So I would assume it's skydiving. I don't
Yeah,
know what altitude you get at for skydiving, but it's got to be pretty high up
it's got to be
there.
pretty high,
So
right?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's got to be really high, right?
Yeah, it's got to be pretty high. I probably could Google it. Chat GPT, tell me what, what it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, that would probably be the highest. I've gone skydiving a couple of times. I love it. I love roller coasters. I want to go bungee jumping. Like if I can jump off of anything, I most likely will.
That's the ticket. That's the ticket. I love it. So you said a couple times, have you done different places as far as skydiving? So that you kind of like experience different scenery, or tell me about that.
Yeah, so I've gone skydiving once in North Carolina, just in rural area. It was a last minute because again, I didn't want to plan it. I just wanted to go ahead and do
Just
it.
do it.
So
Yeah.
I probably a sketchy way of doing it. I found something on Groupon and just went the next day.
That's perfect.
But
Yeah.
I survived. I just held the
Yeah.
tail. And then the next time I did was in Pennsylvania. I actually went with my mom for her 60th birthday because
Very
I got
cool.
my love for doing crazy things from her.
Yeah.
And so we went in Pennsylvania, and you could see the day that we went. It was outside of Philly, and how the sky was perfectly clear. Like you could not have asked for a better day. You could see Philly and the New York City skyline from where we
Oh,
were.
wow.
It was wild. Like it
That'd be
was so
amazing.
wild that you could
Yeah.
see it. And yeah, that will be a moment that I'll never forget that.
I love it. That's really cool. That's really cool. Well, Meredith, thank you so much for the time being a part of
Yeah.
Attribution Time. I'm excited for this one. I think we covered so much, and it really just shows the value of uh, how MOPS and attribution and works across every team. So Etumos, I'll put a link to that link down there, but phenomenal partner within Adobe and obviously leveling up a ton on the reporting and not just attribution tools, but across many BI tools. So anything else around Etimus you want to plug before we wrap up?
Yeah, just that was perfect. And that, we support the four pillars of marketing operations. So anything with campaign, platform, analytics, we've got you covered, and we are ready to support.
Love it. Awesome. Thanks so much, Meredith. I
Yeah,
hope you
thank
have a
you.
great rest of your day. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. You too. Bye.
Bye.